All right, so are you ready to dive deep? Today we're looking at Amadeus Cho.
Amadeus Cho.
Yeah, Amadeus Cho. He first shows up in Amazing Fantasy number 15 back in 2004.
Okay.
And that's actually the same comic that introduced Spider-Man way back when.
Wow, that's a big one to follow.
It is huge shoes to fill. But get this guy Amadeus Cho, he ends up becoming the Hulk.
What?
Yeah, so how does a teen genius end up a gamma-powered giant? Well, that's what we're going to find out.
Oh, I'm intrigued already.
So in the description for Amazing Fantasy number 15, they call it a milestone issue, which is a pretty big deal, right?
Yeah, it definitely seems like Marvel had some serious plans for this character right from the start.
Yeah, like they're saying, hey, everyone, pay attention. Amadeus Cho is going to be a big deal.
Right.
And speaking of big deals, this debut issue is 48 pages.
Wow.
I know, right? 5 different stories packed in there. And Cho's story, it's all tied in with the Planet Hulk World War Hulk storyline.
Oh, so this is where Hulk gets sent off to space, becomes a gladiator, and then comes back to Earth with a vengeance.
Exactly. Cosmic chaos everywhere. And smack dab in the middle of it all, we get our first glimpse of Amadeus Cho.
And the description really hypes him up as this, like, blast of comic book fun.
Yeah, totally. It's not all doom and gloom like some Hulk stories can be.
Yeah, right.
And he actually has these early names like Mastermind Excello and later the Totally Awesome Hulk. What do you make of those?
Well, Mastermind Excello definitely screams super genius.
Right.
Yeah, it's all about brain power, strategy, outthinking everyone else. But then Totally Awesome Hulk is such a shift. It's playful, energetic.
Yeah, almost like he's putting his own spin on the whole Hulk thing.
Exactly. It feels less angsty, more lighthearted. But there's also confidence there. Like he's owning that power, making it his own. It's not just inheriting Hulk's strength. It's transforming it into something new.
Yeah, it's evolution, not just inheritance.
Sorry.
And speaking of transformation, this is where things get really interesting. Cho goes from being the solo act to joining the champions.
Oh, wow. So now he's teaming up. That's a big change.
Yeah, and this isn't just any team. We're talking Miles Morales, Kamala Khan, Nova, Cyclops, even Spider-Gwen.
Wow. Talk about a powerhouse lineup.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So what happens when you add a super genius Hulk to a team of already awesome heroes?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the champions, they're known for being idealistic.
Right,
But they also have their internal struggles and different views on how to actually be heroes.
right.
Adding someone like Cho with his intellect and the whole unpredictable Hulk thing can really shake things up, you know.
Yeah.
How do you think he'd handle being on a team, especially with someone like Cyclops who's known for his, let's say, intense leadership style?
Well, that's a good point. He's not just another brainy hero like Iron Man.
Right, it's got that raw power too.
Exactly. So imagine those team meetings, everyone debating strategy, and Cho's just there like, can I just Hulk out and smash the problem already?
Oh man, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it could definitely create some friction. But then again, the champions often face problems that need more than just brute force.
True. It's not always about smashing. They deal with social issues, political stuff, things that need a more careful approach.
Exactly. So Cho's intelligence could actually be really valuable in those situations.
Absolutely. He could be the brains of the operation.
But then there's the big question, control. The Hulk has a tendency to, well, take over.
Right.
So how does Cho, even with all his genius, manage that? How does he deal with that internal struggle?
That is the million-dollar question. Does he fully embrace the Hulk? Or is it a constant battle for control? And how does that affect his relationships with the other champions?
Yeah, especially with those who might be a little wary of his Hulk side. It's a dynamic that's ripe for exploration, both in the comics and maybe, just maybe, in the MCU.
Oh, speaking of the MCU, have you heard those rumors about Cho's potential debut?
Oh yeah, you mean the ones about Logan Kim?
Yeah, the young star from Ghostbusters. Afterlife.
Yeah. I could totally see him bringing that youthful energy and that mischievous charm to Cho. But casting aside, where do you see Cho actually fitting into the already jam-packed MCU?
Well, the source material, it does give us some clues. It mentions Shang-Chi and Agents of Atlas as potential spots, which I think both have some really interesting possibilities. But before we get into that, what do you think? What makes those franchises a good fit for Cho?
Well, let's start with Shang-Chi. We know that movie was a huge success, and Marvel is definitely interested in exploring Asian representation more deeply.
Yeah, definitely.
So having Cho, a Korean-American hero, join that world feels like a natural progression.
Totally. It could allow for even deeper dives into Asian culture and mythology. and the potential for some epic martial arts showdowns. Come on. Shang-Chi versus a hulked-out Cho. That's box office gold.
Right, talk about a clash of styles. But then you've got Agents of Atlas, which is a whole other vibe. It's all about Asian folklore, supernatural threats. How do you think Cho's scientific mind would mesh with that world of mystical beings and ancient legends?
That's what makes it so interesting, right? It's this clash of logic and reason versus the mystical and the unpredictable. Plus, the Agents of Atlas, they protect the Pacific Rim, which aligns perfectly with Cho's heritage.
Yeah, it could really allow for some exploration of his cultural identity.
Totally. And let's not forget about the team dynamics. The Agents of Atlas are already this diverse group with characters from all different Asian backgrounds.
Right.
Adding Cho to that mix, it would be explosive.
I can totally imagine him butting heads with the more traditional heroes, but also finding common ground with them.
Yeah, they all share that desire to protect the world.
Exactly. So it's a recipe for some really exciting stories. But before we get lost in all the MCU speculation, let's go back to the source material.
Right, back to the comics.
We know Cho becomes the Hulk, but the how and the why, that's still a mystery. What events or relationships in the comics do you think might give us clues about his MCU journey?
One relationship that really stands out is his connection to Hercules. It's like a mentor-student thing.
Oh, yeah, Hercules.
Yeah, he really shapes Cho's understanding of what it means to be a hero, especially a hero with that much power.
That's a really interesting point.
Yeah, so could we see a similar dynamic play out in the MCU? Maybe with a different mentor figure.
Maybe. And how would that relationship then influence his transformation into the Hulk?
Oh, lots of questions. And the comics really dive into the emotional and psychological impact of carrying that Hulk power. So I'd be curious to see if the MCU explores those themes too, especially through that lens of mentorship and guidance.
Yeah, because it's not always sunshine and rainbows for Cho in the comics, you know?
Yeah, he makes mistakes, he faces setbacks.
Right. He has to deal with the consequences of his actions, just like anyone else.
Exactly. It's that complexity, that vulnerability that makes him such a relatable and engaging character.
I wonder if the MCU will go there. Will they shy away from those darker aspects, or will they embrace them and give us a more nuanced portrayal of a hero's journey?
That is the question. And it kind of speaks to a bigger conversation about how the MCU approaches character development in general. Are they willing to explore the complexities of heroism? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But hey, I'm curious. If you had to choose, where would you want to see Amadeus Cho make his MCU debut? Alongside Shang-Chi or as part of the Agents of Atlas?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Both options are so exciting. I mean, who knows, maybe we'll get lucky and see him in both.
Oh.
But until then, we'll just have to keep our eyes peeled for any news or hints about Cho's arrival in the MCU, because one thing's for sure, it's going to be a game changer.
So we were talking about where Cho might fit in, and Shang-Chi and Agents of Atlas both sound pretty exciting, right? But I think his impact could be way bigger than just those franchises. I mean, he could really change the whole MCU landscape.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just about adding another hero. Cho brings something totally different. He's young, he's a super genius, and he's a Korean-American Hulk. That's not your average superhero.
Right. He really challenges our idea of what a hero can be.
Exactly. It's like he's saying, anyone can be a hero, no matter where you come from or what you look like.
And it's not just about representation for the sake of it, you know?
Yeah.
It's about Cho's unique perspective, his way of seeing the world. It opens up so many possibilities for storytelling.
It's like he's looking at everything through this different lens, combining scientific brilliance with this like youthful sense of wonder. And then you add a little Hulk-sized unpredictability on top of that. What kind of stories do you think we could get with a character like that?
Well, imagine the conflicts. On one hand, he's got this incredible intellect and these powers. But on the other hand, he's dealing with expectations, maybe even prejudice. And of course, the whole Hulk smash thing that he can't always control.
Yeah, that internal struggle, that's what makes him so interesting. It's like that classic superhero dilemma, right? Balancing your powers with everyday life. But for Cho, it's amplified. It's not just about secret identities and villains.
Right.
He's also navigating what it means to be a young, gifted person of color in a world that doesn't always get him.
And don't forget about how he might change the power dynamics in the MCU. I mean, we've already seen some shifts with Miles and Kamala, but Cho, he's connected to the Hulk. That's a whole other level of power.
Right. It's like, whoa, there's this teenage brainiac who can also turn into a giant green rage monster.
Yeah.
The other heroes have to be taking notice. Do you think he could become a leader? Maybe even challenge the established order, like with the Avengers?
It's possible. He's definitely got the brains and the power to be a major force. But he's also got that rebellious side, always questioning authority. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, especially if he ends up interacting with, like, Captain Marvel or Doctor Strange.
Oh man, can you imagine Cho and Doctor Strange together? Science versus magic, the battle of wits, maybe even a little Hulk-style arm wrestling.
Oh, the comedic potential's off the charts. And speaking of humor, that's another thing that makes Cho so great. He's got this quick wit and a playful personality. Even as the Hulk, there's this sense of joy, almost like a kid. It's refreshing, especially in the often serious world of the MCU.
Yeah, I agree. It's like he reminds us that even when things are tough, there's still room for fun, for laughter, for a bit of chaos. We could all use a bit more of that, right? Both in superhero stories and in real life.
Definitely. So while we're pretty sure Cho is coming to the MCU, it's fun to think about how it might happen. We talked about Shang-Chi and Agents of Atlas, but what about the Young Avengers? Yeah. They've been hinting at that team in some recent projects.
That's a great idea. They're all about legacy, about carrying on the torch from the older heroes, and who better to represent the Hulk's legacy than Amadeus Cho? Plus, he could team up with other young heroes like Kate Bishop and Cassie Lang.
Exactly. They could introduce him gradually, let his character develop, and then boom, he branches out. Maybe he joins another team, or even gets his own solo adventure.
The possibilities are endless. That's what's so exciting. We're entering this new era in the MCU, one that's more diverse and inclusive. And Cho, with his intelligence, power, and his heart, he's ready to be a major player in all of that. But let's not forget the comics. What moments or storylines from there do you think might influence his MCU journey?
Well, there's World War Hulk. Cho actually plays a big role in that, helping to calm the Hulk down. It shows how empathetic he is. He connects with the Hulk on a deeper level, and he's not afraid to stand up to even the most powerful beings.
Do you think we might see something similar in the MCU? Maybe Cho becomes this bridge between the Hulk and everyone else.
That's really interesting to add another layer to his character, showing that his intelligence isn't just about strategy, it's also about understanding and compassion. It would definitely set him apart from the heroes who just see the Hulk as a threat.
And it also brings up the question of how Cho's own Hulk transformation might happen in the MCU. Will it be a gradual thing, something forced on him, or a choice he makes? And how will he handle all that power and responsibility? Big questions. I'm sure the MCU will find its own way to explore all of that, but it's clear that Cho's journey to becoming the Hulk is going to be complex. It'll be full of challenges and triumphs, and probably a few Hulk-sized smash-ups along the way. But before we finish up this part of our deep dive, I think it's worth talking about what Cho's arrival could mean for Asian representation in superhero movies. Is it a sign of real change, or just a small step in a much longer journey?
That's an important question. It's definitely a positive step, but representation isn't a finish line, it's a journey.
I agree. It's about creating authentic portrayals of characters from diverse backgrounds. It's about making sure their voices are heard. So as we wait for Cho to show up in the MCU, let's also be mindful viewers demanding more representation and authentic storytelling in everything.
Welcome back. So we spent all this time talking about Amadeus Cho, where he comes from, what he could do in the MCU. Where do we even land now? What's the takeaway from all this? I think what really sticks with me is how different he is. He's not just a powerful hero. He's like this symbol of change. He challenges everything in the comics and maybe even in the MCU.
Absolutely. He's pushing the boundaries, brains, brawn, cultural representation. He's got it all. It's kind of refreshing.
It really is. And that's probably why everyone's so hyped about him joining the MCU. He's a step toward making things more inclusive, more diverse. Not just because of his background, but his personality, his whole way of being a hero. He doesn't fit into a box, and that's what makes him so cool.
Right. He reminds us that heroes can be all kinds of things. They can be smart, they can be funny, they can even mess up sometimes, and they can even be a little chaotic. It's that human side that makes him so easy to connect with.
Yeah, totally.
And you know what else? There's something really inspiring about seeing a young guy like Cho just go for it, embrace his potential even when things get tough.
It's true. He doesn't back down from anything. He questions authority, challenges the way things are, and makes his own path. It's a good lesson for anyone who feels like they don't fit in.
Like he's saying, hey, you don't have to be perfect. You don't even have to follow the rules. Just be yourself and fight for what you believe in, even if that means turning into a giant green rage monster.
Exactly. He's got all this power, but it doesn't control him. He uses it to help people, to do what's right. And he even has fun while he's doing it.
It's proof that even the Hulk can crack a joke now and then. But seriously, what do you think Cho's legacy will be in the comics and just in the whole world of superhero stories?
I think it'll be about breaking down walls,
Yeah.
challenging what we think a hero should be. He represents how much things are changing, how diverse our world is. He shows us that anyone can be a hero. It doesn't matter where you come from, what you look like, or even what your powers are.
That's a powerful message. As we wrap this up, I feel a lot of hope. Characters like Cho show us that the future of superhero stories is bright, it's full of potential, and it includes everyone. And the exciting part, we're about to see him come to life on the big screen. I can't wait to see what he does.
Me neither. So to all our listeners, keep an eye out for Amadeus Cho. He's coming to the MCU, and he's going to be amazing.
That's all for our deep dive into Amadeus Cho. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep believing in heroes.